Hey guys, welcome in. It is Brad with College SportsCast. We are here tonight to do our Big Fuss Show, Week 41, Season 2.
Can I please have your attention?
There's all a commotion around here.
What are you talking about?
Let them yap at you.
It's actually very exciting.
Hey guys, welcome back. It is Brad with College SportsCast. I've got John Hammonds on here with me tonight. What's up, Hammonds?
What's up, man?
We are here to do our Big Fuss Show. We are here for Week 41 of Season 2. And start off with College SportsCast here is now building on Facebook. And we hope you guys will help us continue to grow. You can now send us stars on posts, and videos like this helps us earn money to make more content. Or you can subscribe to College SportsCast now. It's only 99 cents a month, and it also helps us to continue to make content for you guys. So we appreciate it. We appreciate the growth, and glad you guys can join us. All right, Hammonds, we don't never talk about this, but on the screen you see our Twitter handles. That is mine and Hammond's Twitter handles on the screen. I thought we would at least bring that up tonight. Hammond's has got about 10,000 or so, maybe plus on Twitter.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I'm more like 2,300 or something, somewhere around there. I don't know. But Hammond's been doing the whole Twitter thing a whole lot longer than I have.
Yeah.
A whole lot longer than I have. All right, so we got a bunch of people on with us. Again, guys, we're here to do our Big Fuss Show, Week 41. Go to Home Field for some very cool collegiate vintage apparel. Use our code there, CSCast, for 15% off. Over 180 teams to choose from. And I don't say that enough, but it is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. So we got several people here with us tonight already. So I'm going to put that in our comments and stuff and kind of look at our comments here. Charles, I appreciate it. If you want to send us some stars, we would love to have some stars. All right, guys. So we're going to start off the show tonight, and we are going to talk about college baseball. So we got some SEC matchups that are big this weekend. This is the final last weekend of SEC and college baseball. Starting next week will be the SEC baseball tournament. There is basically 4 teams right now that are vying for the number 1 spot in the SEC.
Yep.
Kentucky is leading, and we also have Arkansas and Tennessee that are tied 1 game behind us. And then Texas A&M technically still has a shot, but they're 3 games behind. So they need a lot of help. But there's really about 3 teams that I think really have a chance this weekend. You got Kentucky, Tennessee, and Arkansas that have a shot at the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament next week.
And then you got the big series is with, Kentucky plays Vandy Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You got Tennessee playing South Carolina. You got Georgia. I can't remember. I think they play Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And then you got Arkansas and Texas A&M playing this weekend. So still a lot to be determined. And, even Florida, they're still in that, opportunity window to where they can get to the NCAA tournament.
They're on the bubble, and I was going to start with them. So this weekend, I'll kind of run down the SEC matchups this weekend. Florida and Georgia are playing each other. Florida is 26 and 25, and they're kind of on the NCAA tournament bubble right now, not the SEC tournament, but the NCAA tournament bubble. And Georgia's 38 and 12. They've had a heck of a year compared to what they did last year. They are in third place in the SEC East behind Kentucky and Tennessee. They are 16 and 11 and in third place in the SEC East. So Florida's got a pretty big matchup here with Georgia and needs a win, but got to get at least one.
They do. And the criteria is that if you don't have, over 500 record, you don't make the tournament. So Florida's going to have to win some games. They're at least going to have to take at least 2 out of 3 against Georgia, and hopefully they can win some games in the SEC tournament to give them an opportunity to go to the tournament.
So South Carolina plays Tennessee at Tennessee this weekend. It's a huge matchup. South Carolina has been ranked most of the season. They are still ranked. They're 24th in at least one of the polls. Tennessee is number 1. They're playing Tennessee. It's at Tennessee. But it is a big weekend for this matchup. South Carolina's 33 and 18. Tennessee is 43 and 10. So, it's a big matchup. And like I said, Tennessee has a chance here to win the outright SEC. They're 1 game behind Kentucky, and they have the tiebreaker.
Yeah, they do. And, Kentucky still has a chance to get the overall number 1, and Tennessee has that chance. I'm not so sure on Arkansas. Arkansas is going to have to do some work against A&M this weekend to get that opportunity. But if you look down the row here, the top 4 in the SEC, they're probably looking at a top seed in the SEC, in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now, I would think all 4 of those, even Georgia has a shot at the 5th seed or 5th best record here of being a host, a super regional host. So, those are some of the others. So Vanderbilt comes to Kentucky. This is a home series this weekend. And Vandy is not – I think they've lost like 7 SEC games in a row. They're 34 and 18, but they haven't played well down the stretch. This is a series Kentucky needs to absolutely win. Be great if they get the sweep. If they sweep, they win the SEC outright, and we'll have the number 1 overall seed in the tournament next week.
Yeah, and Vandy's got a really good hitter in R.J. Austin. He's a really good hitter. So, Vanderbilt's got some guys that can still hit the ball. They can still pitch. So, Vandy's probably going to be in the tournament, but they're not the Vandy of old of the last 2 to 3 years. They're just not the same. They've had last couple of years, they've been kind of down. But at the end of the day, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tennessee, then you got a couple of the teams that could be sleepers in this tournament. South Carolina, Alabama's kind of right there. Then you got Georgia, and even Mississippi State. Mississippi State's coming on. They hung with Arkansas this past weekend. In a couple of games, they actually should have won. Let's be frank. They was up 6-1 in one game, and Arkansas come back and won. So, which Arkansas has got a really good team, with Hagan Smith and
Yeah, he's been lights out for a Friday starter all year long. So, I mean, I think they're like 13-0 on Fridays when he starts, something like that. I mean, they've been lights out with him all year. We've got Missouri taking on Mississippi State. So that is another SEC series this weekend. You got Ole Miss at LSU. LSU, who was the national champion last year, and have a couple of few players back off of that team with Tommy Tanks. And, so they may miss the tournament here. They're on the bubble as well.
Yep.
The NCAA tournament. It's a tough call for them. I mean, they may miss the whole thing as well. So
I'm not real sure what's happening in the comment section down here, but
yeah, me either. We're not talking about any of that, so I'm just kind of letting it go. So I'm not real sure, to be honest.
Bunch of idiots, if you ask me. But anyways.
So, Ole Miss versus LSU. You got Alabama at Auburn this weekend in the SEC as well. And you got a real big series down at Texas A&M. You got Arkansas versus Texas A&M. That is going to be one heck of a series. So, what do you think about that series, John? I mean, that's two of the teams that have an outside shot of of winning the SEC here this week.
Good chance as any.
I mean, Arkansas, like I said on Friday, I mean, they've pretty much been lights out with Hagen Smith. So, it's, they definitely have a chance here to win the SEC. Depends on what Kentucky and Tennessee does, of course. And playing against Texas A&M is going to be really tough. Like, they have a hitter's lineup.
They do. A&M's got a really, really good team, and they got some really good pitching too. Braden Montgomery is really good for A&M. They got Jace Lavalette. So A&M and Jackson Appel, I think he's averaging 347, I think, batting average. So Texas A&M's got a really good team. So
they do. They absolutely do. Like I said, they're an offensive team, and they have a heck of a lineup. Those are the SEC matchups this weekend. I wanted to kind of run through the matchups for the SEC baseball. Let's talk about SEC baseball tournament. It's next weekend, or starts next week, I should say. We'll start next Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Not every team makes it. There's 14 teams in. Only 12 of the top 14 makes it into the SEC tournament.
Yep.
Auburn looks like they're going to be out. And LSU is on the verge of, if they don't win this series this weekend, they may not make it.
Yep.
Which is pretty much unheard of for LSU not to make that.
Especially after them winning the national championship last year. So, which, to be granted, LSU lost a lot of their top talent too. Like a lot of their pitchers, they lost Cruz. So,
yeah. So the SEC tournament, I mean, you've got, of course, I said those teams. You got Georgia, who's looking really good. South Carolina's got a pretty good team and could make a run in the SEC tournament as well. You can't count out Florida because of Jack Caglione.
No.
And Condon with Georgia is just killing the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
his batting average is 454. Like that's absurd. And his slugging percentage is 1,082. Like he's at a record pace right now.
Yeah, and he's got the most home runs ever in a season.
And I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if Condon was a top 5 pick, maybe even the top 3. So,
all right. So, what do you think about the NCAA tournament? So, I want to start with this. Kentucky, who is sitting at number 2 in the polls right now, behind Tennessee. They are number 1 in the RPI. They have the most, they're 18-6 in quad 1 victories in baseball, and they have the most, 18 wins is the most. And they have the best road record. They're 16-5 on the road in baseball right now. So even if they lose this, if they were to lose this series this weekend, do you think they still have a super regional locked up?
I think they do. I think Kentucky does too.
That's what I'm talking about, Kentucky. Do you think they have a –
yeah, I think Kentucky still does. Like, they won 2 out of 3 against Arkansas. Now, they did have the series. They lost 2 out of 3 to Tennessee, but Tennessee's a really good team. So.
Yeah.
What is going on in the comment section down here?
I don't know. This is all off of YouTube is all I can tell you. And we usually don't have a whole lot of comments off of YouTube, so I'm not sure.
It's very disgusting, to be honest.
It's all off of YouTube is all I can tell you. All right. Let's move on, John, and go to our NBA Draft Combine. So who is kind of stood out to you? I know that Shepard, had a 42-inch vertical leap yesterday. Looked like he was doing pretty good in the three-point contest. Mm-hmm. But besides Shepard, or if you want to talk about Shepard, who else has kind of stood out to you in the NBA Draft Combine?
Jamal Shead. There's a few other guys, like you said, Reed Shepard, Ron Hollins impressed me. Wooga Poplar has impressed me. I think Dillingham's played really well and done great. The Sarr kid that's probably going to be number 1 overall. He's playing really well.
You think he's going to be better than his brother, Olivier?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
To me, he will be. And plus, this is a really down draft compared to most years. So it's not top heavy like it normally is.
So I got to ask you, Bronny James. I got to ask you about Bronny James. There's been all kinds of talk whether he should be in there and should get drafted or shouldn't get drafted. I personally don't think that he's really all that great of a player, but I will say three-point shooting yesterday, he hit 21 of 25 in that drill that they did yesterday in three-point shooting contest, basically, and looked really good at times. Do you think there is a outside chance that this kid gets drafted? I mean, you know who his dad is, so.
Yeah, I say he does, but it might be late second, maybe later on, close to the end of the second, maybe. I think he's a good depth piece. I just don't see it with him.
Well, I gotta ask you. There is some talk, and there's been some stuff going around that the Atlanta Hawks, who got the number 1 pick, that they actually might consider drafting him number 1 just so they can sign LeBron and team him up. Is that even remotely in play? Because I think it's just a joke, is what I think.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen unless somebody else trades down and tries to figure a way to get him or whatnot. I just don't see Atlanta taking him number 1 overall. I mean,
I mean, you talking about listen, if LeBron James was 10 years younger, okay, I would probably even 7 years younger. I would say, okay, maybe you do that.
Maybe
But
think about it, yeah.
But we're talking about a guy who's going to be like 39, be 39, be 22 years in the league next year.
Yeah.
I mean, so you do that to get him for 1 year, maybe? I just can't see that. What do you think? I just think it's not
I just don't think it's reasonable.
at all in play.
Nah, I don't either.
I just don't think it's in play whatsoever. So, in my opinion. All right. So Justin Edwards today, I'm going to ask you about him. He played a scrimmage. He had 14 points, I think 6 rebounds, a couple assists in a scrimmage with the at the NBA Draft Combine today. First game, I got to say he looked pretty decent from some of the highlights and from what I've seen. Do you think that Justin Edwards can up his stock enough to land in the first round?
I think he can land in the top 30.
That's what I mean, in the first round.
The thing with Justin Edwards is so much more consistency than it is just actual play. There's just certain, even last year of Kentucky, there was games last year where he would look really well, like the Alabama game, and then there was a few other games where he would just disappear. And NBA scouts watch that stuff, teams watch that stuff, and he's going to have to be more consistent on a consistent basis if he wants to get drafted pretty high up. Now, on the other equation of it, like I was saying with Shepard earlier, Shepard's probably not going to go no higher than third, no lower than third. Him and Dillingham both.
Say no higher than third or no lower than third?
I meant no lower than third. I think he's either going to go to the Spurs or who has the second pick?
Is it the Pistons?
I know the Hawks have the first, but I think it's the Pistons.
I think it's the Pistons, I believe.
I think you'll see Rob Dillingham and those two probably in the top 3. So,
yeah. Another one that I saw in the scrimmages today that I wanted to ask you about, and he's not even been on boards, and I don't understand it. Antonio Reeves today had 17 points in his first scrimmage, still in the ball. He looked awesome from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell me that this kid's going to get drafted. I mean, how in God's name do you not draft a guy that scores over 20 points a game and is consistent and a 45%, a 50, 45, 90 guy? How do you not draft this guy? I don't understand.
I think he might go mid-second, but I feel like anybody that gets him is going to be getting a really good player, a guy that really developed the last, couple of years when he came there. You're talking about Reeves, right?
Antonio Reeves.
Yeah. Because before he got to Kentucky, he was kind of raw and stuff, and he come into Kentucky and he just kind of upped his game and improved his stock, and now he's sitting really well. We had that game yesterday where he looked really well during the game. So Antonio Reeves has upped his stock quite a bit since last year and the year before. And props to the kid. I'm proud of him, what he's accomplished. He's put in a lot of work. He put in a lot of work last year. I'll say this. There was many games last year that Reeves played that if Kentucky didn't have him going in some of those games, they don't win those games. He took a lot of those games over. And, I think he read a stat where Reeves had so many amount of 20-plus games, 20-point games.
22 or 23 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And, that's impressive, what he's done and what he's accomplished. And I hope somebody takes a chance on this guy and gives him an opportunity to showcase his talent.
Another one I want to ask you about. I got to give some props to the guy, even though he played for Tennessee Vols last year. I got to give some props to the guy. I got to ask you about Dalton Connect. I've been hearing some pretty good. He's been impressing at the combine so far, from what I am hearing. And I got to ask you about Dalton Connect. What do you think about
Dalton Connect is just a pure shooter. He was like that all year with Tennessee. When Tennessee needed a big bucket, he made plays for them. I think last I looked, I think there was a mock draft that had him going 8 to the Memphis Grizzlies. That would be a perfect spot for him because they're kind of in between right now, and I think he would slide right in there and play a little bit.
With the Grizzlies, if you get your main guy back and put Dalton Connect with him, with what they got,
yeah,
I mean, that's
it can be a dangerous combo, especially from the outside, And Dylan Connect is just not a shoot the ball around the paint either. Like, he shot the ball 3, he drove, he made plays, he passed the ball. Like, he's a 5-tool player.
Does he go in? Do you think he's a guaranteed top 10 pick?
I think he is. I think he's top 10. If he's not top 10, he's top 15, because somebody's going to take a chance on a guy that has that kind of tools in his arsenal.
I mean, listen, I gave him props all season long on our show here. Every time we were doing our game day pick'ems, I talked about how well he was playing, how he was fun to watch. And I have heard already that he's been pretty impressive in the NBA draft combine, at the combine so far. And it would not surprise me at all if he is not guaranteed here a top 10 pick at the end of June in the NBA draft. He's somebody that I absolutely wanted to bring up. You talked about Robert Dillingham. There's 2 things about Dillingham. He weighed 162 pounds. That is so slight, man. I mean, do you think that'll be an issue at all? I'm not talking about for the draft, because I almost think he's almost going to be a top 5. But playing in the NBA at 162 pounds, I'm not so sure. You think that'll be an issue for him?
Nah, I don't think the weight's going to have much to do with it. Dillingham's going to do his thing, man. You watched it all season long. There was a couple games where he had bad games, but at the end of the day, he's Rob Dillingham. He's the shifts. Like, he knows how to take control of a game, and he knows how to win, and he's got that winning attitude. And the thing about it, I tell people, there's a good chance that he could be with the Spurs. You put Wemby with him, that's a dangerous Spurs team that's rebuilding, and they could be having a winning season in just Wemby's second year. And I think that's a good fit for him.
They picked number 4, so the Spurs
and being, taught by the greatest coach of all time, Greg Popovich. Like, Popovich might be one of the greatest coaches of all time. He's just he knows how to win. He knows how to put things together. He's got that winning mentality. He's won championships. So put Rob Dillingham on that team, and I think you'll see Rob do some big things.
Yeah, I mean, I just noticed how slight he was in the weight department. I mean, 6'1", he measured at 6'1" and 162 pounds. So, I mean, but the dude has as much confidence as you could possibly have on the court. Like, he doesn't think anybody can stop him. So, I mean, I don't see how he's not a top 5 pick. And let me ask you about Shepherd with his jump and his athleticism yesterday, shooting threes. He was already being talked about as possibly the third or fourth pick in the draft. Is there an outside shot that he slides up as the number one pick? Do you think that's a chance, or do you think he really goes second, third, or fourth?
I think he goes second, third, or fourth. I think Sarr is probably going to be your number one overall pick. Just in my opinion. I think Reed is either going to go to the Pistons, the Spurs.
God, I hope he doesn't go to the Pistons. They've been so.
Well, I mean, yeah, they've not really had great teams as of recent. So, but
I mean, they just don't seem like they can get it together, and they've had like number one, number two picks.
Yeah,
and they have a lot of like talented players, and they just can't put it together. It seems.
I will say this though. I think anywhere Reed goes, though, he's going to do really well. He had that bad game against, Oakland, but sometimes kids mount under the pressure and sometimes it just happens. And I think, he's proved that this week, especially in the combine, that he's got his head on his shoulders, chip on his shoulder. He had the 42-inch vertical leap. He shot really well. He's trying to impress these guys, and I think he done a really good job yesterday. He was showing off quite a bit yesterday. Kyle Tucker said he had some drip in that 3-point shot. Like,
yeah. I mean, I heard it too. I think he hit 19 of 25 in that same drill I was talking about. That Bronny hit 21 of 25.
Yep.
I mean, that's not too bad. 19 of 25.
Yep. No, that's
better
than I could do probably. So
I mean, that's not too bad. That's only 38. That's 76%, something like that. 19 of 25. So
yeah.
I mean that's not too bad. And I just got to say this: white boy can jump.
Yeah, he can.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive. A 42-inch vertical for a 6'3" guard.
Yeah.
Is pretty impressive. And I'll tell you where I've seen it the most in his play this year. Those 3-point blocks, 3-point shots that he would block in season, you don't see that very often. You don't see a guy that can get up and block a 3-point jump shot.
No, you don't.
And Reed Sheppard, counting what he did in Canada and throughout the season this past year, I bet he blocked at least 6 or 8 of those 3-point jump shots. And you just don't see that. I bet you most people don't get 6 of those in their career, much less 6 in one season. All right. So I'm going to ask you about a couple of guys who Kentucky and Mark Pope might be waiting on. I'm going to ask you about Jackson Robinson. What are you hearing about Jackson Robinson? He's at the combine. Do you think he stays in the draft? Do you think he comes back to college? What are you hearing?
I think he stays in the draft. I've heard some smoke from Arkansas and Kansas. And to me, I think that's just driving up NIL numbers, if you really want to know the truth about it, if we're being frank. So, but if he doesn't go those two, I think Kentucky's there for the taking. But I would say that if he gets a second-round grade, at least right out of the gate second round, I think he's got to take it because that's probably as good as you're going to go at this point. Because next year will probably be an even better draft. And you take it and strike it while the iron's hot. And I think that's where.
Yeah, but here's my take on that, John. Will he be better off? Will the Kentucky brand raise awareness about him enough to where he could slide into the first round if he comes back and plays for Kentucky and takes them a little further along, and can star at Kentucky instead of trying to slide late in the second round? I mean, don't you think the brand of Kentucky could help him?
I think you could. I just think that either his mind's made up, he's going to stay pro, or he's got something bigger on the horizon, NIL wise. I think when this is all said and done, now I could be wrong, but I think Kentucky's going to get the Ainsley kid from Fairleigh Dickinson, and I think they'll get Chaz Lanier. And then that 13th piece, according to Pope, was a floating piece that they're waiting on. To me, it's probably going to be either Jackson Robinson or Wooga Poplar, one of those two guys.
Whichever one. He's at the combine as well. Have you heard anything about the way he's playing and that kind of stuff?
I've heard bits and pieces. I know he had a really good game yesterday. I think he had like 16 points, so he kind of showed out at the G League Unite combine thing that they had. So I think Wooga has some, he has a chance to get picked, get drafted. But the problem with him is he stayed really injured all year last year, and teams kind of back off on guys like that sometimes. But I think there's a good chance though that Poplar comes back, but there's also a good chance that he could stay in college next year.
I mean, I'm hearing that with Jackson Robinson that he's actually leaning towards staying in the draft.
That's what I heard.
I don't know that I fully agree with that call, because everything I have seen has him between 50 and 60. And there's only 58 picks this year in the 2 rounds. 2 picks were forfeited for trades and everything else that's gone on over the last few years. So 2 picks were forfeited. There's only 58 picks this year. I think you're taking a chance. You wind up with a 2-way contract and play in the G League. Would you rather play in the G League, or would you rather play for Kentucky and make NIL money?
I would rather play for Kentucky and make NIL money, to be honest.
I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. That's not even – I'd rather play for anybody in NIL than play in the G League in where nobody even knows that they even play. Basically.
Well, and the thing about G League and those lower development programs is there's sometimes chances that you might not even get moved up to the NBA.
Well, I mean, on a 2-way, you do get a few call-ups, but it ain't much, and you're not getting no playing time.
But what I'm saying, some guys don't even get called up. Some guys that's their living, and some guys go overseas. Sometimes that's the other part about it. A lot of guys have went overseas and done their thing instead of the NBA. So, but I'm like you. If I'm deciding on the G League or staying at a school, I would stay anywhere except go to the G League. Like
NIL money, you can make it in the Big 12. You can do it in the SEC. You can do it. I mean, wherever.
To me, that's a big yes. I would most likely come back to school, honestly. So.
I think that's a no-brainer if you ask me. I'm like, I don't understand why anybody would even consider, if you are on the bubble and you might have to be in the G League. I mean, make the money, come back, go play at a Power 5, Power 6 school and make the money, and maybe you help your case the next year.
Yep.
I mean, I just don't see why anybody would choose anything other than that, to be honest with you.
No, that's me.
All right, real quick, I'm going to throw in a couple of things about Kentucky women's basketball here. The SEC schedule came out today, and I just want to throw it out here real quick. Home games for the SEC women's team this year is going to be Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Texas, who's going to be a top 3 team, probably 4 team in the country preseason, is going to be coming to Memorial Coliseum. Yes, Kentucky women's is supposed to be back in Memorial Coliseum this year, and it's renovated. They're looking forward to that. Away games is going to be Florida, Ole Miss, Missouri, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Georgia. Georgia is the only repeat there. They play them both home and away. After adding Texas and Oklahoma, there's now 16 teams. The women only play 16 games. So there is one rotation. They got Georgia this year, and that will rotate. I will say this, because Texas and Oklahoma come in, Kentucky has, for the last 30 years in women's basketball, has had one constant home and away every single year. That's been South Carolina. They've been kind of good lately. So it's kind of good to see that they are only I'm not sure what that is. I was just trying to look at it. No idea what that is. But anyways, not playing South Carolina is a big, huge plus. I'm not playing them twice. They do have to go on the road. They just don't get them at home this time. And then the second thing that I wanted to bring up on the girls, ESPN put out top 25 recruiting class rankings today. And there were 5 SEC teams that made the top 25 in high school recruiting. Kentucky was 3rd in the SEC. They're ranked 11th. They have the 11th best class in the country. Only South Carolina and Texas were better. So the 3rd ranked class by ESPN, they're ranked 11th overall by ESPN. Clara Silva, 6'7" Portugal, from Portugal, and Lexi Blue are the 2 stars of the class. That's not including the transfer portal. That's just the high school rankings. And I did want to throw that in there. The girls are vastly improving their roster and their team. Kenny Brooks is doing great, and I can't wait to cover them next fall. So I wanted to throw that out there for them. And then, John, I wanted to ask you, Oregon State and Washington State signed a football TV deal. Did you hear me? Pac-12 couldn't get it done. Right?
Right.
The Pac-12 couldn't get it done. But Oregon State and Washington State signed a football TV deal.
I think it's big. I think it's big for those 2 teams to get that figured out, and hopefully the next couple of years the Pac-12 can, I don't know, go back and bring some teams in and figure things out. So I think it's a big deal for Oregon State and Washington State to sign the deal that they did.
I'm here. I'm just trying to shut this off.
No, you're good.
Okay. I'm back. I have no idea who in the world or what somebody's even trying to call me on. So I've never seen that before. I have no idea what that is. So, anyways, Oregon State and Washington State, of course, part of the Pac-12 that fell apart, but they have done an absolute excellent job. And I know that a lot of people are going to say and think that the Pac-12 is completely dead, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go through a list here, if I can get this to pull up, of the accomplishments that Oregon State and Washington State has had since the Pac-12 fell apart.
Yeah.
Since they couldn't get a TV deal done. So they went through the court system and won the rights to the Pac-12.
Yeah.
All right. Not only did they win the rights to the Pac-12, they also got $65 million from the departing members to help them build something. Then they went out and got a football deal with the Mountain West for a 2 years so they can have seasons and play games, and got that done. Then they signed a deal with the West Coast Conference for all the Olympic sports and basketball. So they could have a season for all of that stuff. It's pretty impressive, John, what all Oregon State and Washington State has done to survive.
It has. It's been impressive, to be honest.
And I know most people think that they're going to just die and die out, and the Pac-12 is going to die. But they have gotten money on this. They just signed a TV deal. They're getting 13 games on the CW and Fox Sports.
I think that's a huge deal for them, because there was a point there where, just abolishing the Pac-12 took them out of those TV contracts, took them out of everything that they once knew, and it was kind of leaving them in limbo. And now that they got this TV deal, it's going to up the game a little bit and give them a little bit more exposure on TV.
Not just exposure, they're going to be getting some money from this deal too.
Money. Yeah, and money too. So
I mean,
I'm
sure it's not anywhere in the $50 million range that the SEC and Big Ten teams are going to get. But even if they could get $3 or $4 million a piece out of this deal and put it together with their 65 that they won through the court system, I mean, they are gaining momentum and gaining money in order to do something to attract possibly other teams to join and save the Pac-12.
And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think what they're doing is a great thing. They're at least trying to build their brand and maybe possibly, like I said a minute ago, get the Pac-12 back to running and get some teams in there that would fit that conference. Because I still think that the Pac-12 is not dead yet. I still think that there's going to be some teams come back and they're going to be added back to the –
while we're talking about it real quick, where do you think they look to? I know everybody says Mountain West. Do you think they just try to get all the Mountain West to kind of reverse into the Pac-12? I think that they're going to pick about 6 of the best Mountain West teams, and then I think there's some other teams that I think they should go after as well.
I think there'll be a couple of teams like Nevada might be one, maybe UNLV might be one, maybe San Diego State. Now I don't know how that would affect basketball, but because that would kind of take them out of the Mountain West, which they would go to, a power conference instead of being in the mid majors, and that would give San Diego State a lot of revenue and a lot of exposure because they would go from mid major to Power 5.
Absolutely, and if they can get a package TV deal, to combine all these teams together,
Yeah.
I think it's very viable. And I'm going to throw out a team that I think they got to go after, and nobody's talking about them. I think they absolutely, and they do not play football. But the Pac-12 used to be with UCLA, used to be a power basketball conference.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, if they want to form a power conference, they absolutely have to go after Gonzaga.
They do. I'm with you. I think Gonzaga leaving the West Coast Conference, I think it would help them in general. Now you do have Grand Canyon moving to the WCC, which
but
is going to help.
That offsets, if they leave, that kind of helps offset the West Coast Conference by bringing in teams like Grand Canyon.
I say what it helps though with these teams like Grand Canyon now, instead of worrying about like a one bid league in that WAC conference, they go from a WAC conference to the West Coast Conference where they could get maybe one or two bids.
And ironically, they're bringing in some teams and they're making their league an odd number. It's 13. They're going to have 13 teams. Is that a sign that they know somebody's leaving? That's all I'm going to say.
I think it could be, and I think it could be that the conference is changing and it's getting bigger. So it could go one or two ways.
I mean, most of the time you don't bring in an odd number of teams. I mean, that's not the way that goes. No. You know. So, but there are some other teams, and I know we're talking about the Pac-12 here, but I also think I think what they could do, John, is I think they could have kind of a West Coast and maybe an Eastern Coast, eastern part of the United States, and they could invite teams like Memphis, maybe Tulane.
Well, you're seeing it now. You're seeing it now with the Big Ten and
UAB possibly
in the SEC. They're turning into major power conferences and major players. And to me, going forward, it's more going to be about the big dogs. And, I've said it since all this realignment has went on. Like a lot of these little schools, mid-majors, they're going to be left in the dust, and they're going to have to figure out how to fix things, and they're going to have to figure out how to mold their conferences together and put a conference together so they can survive. Because if they don't, the big dogs are going to get ahead of them, and they're not going to be able to catch up.
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to throw out some teams here that I think that they absolutely should go after. And there's some Mountain West teams out there too that's good in football and some basketball, and you got to do them. I think there's about 6 of them out there that I would go after, and then I would go after a couple. I might even consider offering St. Mary's because they would be a good basketball school as well.
They would.
And go after them. So I think those are some good ways to save the Pac-12. And Oregon State and Washington State is doing a hell of a job in trying to survive after what happened to the Pac-12. So just had to throw that in there. We're going to move on and go to Iowa women's basketball coach Lisa Bluder retires just out of the blue yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
24 years. She's taken them to the national championship game the last 2 years with Caitlin Clark, of course. They lost to LSU and South Carolina, but got to the national championship game. She's been there 24 years and retires. And they've already announced her predecessor. Can't say that word. And she is Jan Jensen. She played for Bluder
Mm-hmm.
before she was at Iowa at Drake and has been with her for 30 years.
Yeah, and not every day you get to coach one of the greatest of all time in Caitlin Clark. Like you're going out on top. You're going out on top, basically.
She's
And
63 years old. She's been coaching for over 30 years. She's got 800 and some wins, 880 some wins total, I think, in her career. So, I mean, she's had a hell of a career as a coach. But the odd thing here is Stanford's coach retired after the season. Well, Vandermeer retired as well. So the women's game is losing two big time coaches here.
yeah, and it's going to a younger generation and a younger audience, and you see that even with Caitlin Clark, she was rallied around by a bunch of kids, even what's the one girl's name that Juju Watkins. Everywhere they went, there was kids there. Like it's a new beginning in women's sports and college sports. This whole NIL deal and the whole landscape of college basketball is changing, and not just in the women's game; it's the men's too. Everybody wants the top dollar. Everybody wants to pay for play thing, and now you're going to have to start paying players to get that, and that's what we're seeing. And I think you see a lot of these older coaches, like the Sabans of the world, the Bluders, the Vandermeers, they're getting out when all the stuff that they used to do don't exist anymore. And it's a new game. So,
yeah, I mean, the game is changing, that's for sure. And the women's game has been really strong the last few years. And it's kind of a tough pill to swallow to lose two legitimate, like Hall of Fame coaches.
yeah.
Within a few weeks of each other here in the women's game. So I hate to see her go. It's been really, really fun the last, I'm going to say 3 years, because I have really been watching them the last 3 years with Caitlin Clark. I didn't watch quite as much of her when she was a freshman, but I really enjoyed watching the way that she let Caitlin Clark lead her team.
Yep.
I mean, it's not every day that you see a coach that would let you shoot 35 footers whenever you want to.
Not many coaches would do that.
I'm just going to be honest with you. There's not many coaches that would allow Caitlin Clark to play the way that she does.
She got to play freely and do the things that she knows, and she hit them. Like she changed the game of basketball the way she played, and props to her. And actually, and to be honest, her first game's tonight.
It is. Her first WNBA regular season game is actually going on right now as we're talking.
I watched quite a bit of the preseason, and she done some really good things early, but it's completely different from the regular season, if we're being honest. So,
yeah. All right. So before we end up the show here, there was toughest college football schedule list that come out. They ranked the top 15. Okay. Now the 24/7 Sports done it. 9 of the top 11 toughest schedules for 2024, John, are from the SEC.
And let me guess who number 1 was. Florida.
Kentucky was number 11, and they were the last of the SEC 9. They were number 9 in the SEC order.
Florida.
9 of the top 11 have the toughest schedules.
I'll say this, and it's early. It's not even June yet. But if Billy Napier can't get to a bowl game. And we said this last year, and we sat here and said the same thing, that if he does not win certain games, he'll not be back. But look at this gauntlet.
This
they play Miami, Florida, and the only early game that's really, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's a non-con, but it's Sanford. That's the only game that they really have a chance to win.
They play 11 power conference schools outside of that.
They play LSU. I think they play Florida. They play Kentucky, which is not a gimme game anymore.
Their non-conference is Sanford, and then they play Miami. They play Florida State. I'm telling you, they play 11 power conference teams.
It's an absolute gauntlet. I looked at it today, and I'm thinking, where is there 3 wins in here? Like, where are they at?
Billy Napier's got a tough road to hold. He had a good class. He's got another one coming. But I'm going to tell you right now, if Florida can't get to a bowl, don't you think they fire him in year 3 with no bowls?
I do.
I do. I really do. Update, Caitlin Clark lost her first game, but she scored 20 points and had 3 assists.
It's going to be a little different than where it was at Iowa. It's going to take time, some adjustment. So
yeah. But just a little update. But anyway, I had to talk about the toughest schedules. 9 of the top 11 schedules are SEC schedules. And this
South Carolina,
sports.
Was South Carolina in that group?
They were one of them. They were like 8 or 9, somewhere in that range, probably.
Kentucky's is not as hard as it looks, but
they were number 11. They were ranked 11th in the country.
It's the back end. It's the back end that's tough.
Yeah.
The front end's not so bad. It's the back end that's really.
Well, it's the fact that the road games that we have.
The road games, yeah. The at Texas, the at Ole Miss,
yes.
Then I think they play Auburn at home. They play
Tennessee.
I don't think they get Mississippi State or Missouri this year. So they cancel those out for those 2. So
yeah. But Kentucky was the 11th ranked toughest schedule in the country. Florida was number 1. And I don't see how Florida can possibly, if they can get to 6 wins, it's an absolute miracle of a season. And let's put it this way: if they was to get to 7 wins, I mean, give him Coach of the Year. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Facts.
I'm serious.
Facts.
So, but I had to put that in there and kind of throw that up. Talking about the toughest schedules in football. We'll kind of get to some more football stuff as we go along here, kind of closing out the summer before we go dark and for a few weeks, not long, but for a few weeks, and come back for season 3. So, John, you had a final buzzer that you wanted to bring up.
I think I'm going to do that next. I think I'm going to do that next week.
Okay. I just wanted to.
I know what you're talking about. I think I'm going to do that next week.
All right.
Especially during baseball. So the baseball will be rocking and rolling next week, so we'll do it next week with baseball.
Okay. All right. It sounds good. We are going to wrap this up and call it a show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we will see you guys probably on Sunday for a weekend wrap-up show with the baseball series, and we will do that. And then we will kind of have an outlook for the SEC tournament for you on Sunday for the SEC baseball tournament next week. So that'll be a couple of things to look forward to on Sunday here at College Sportscast. So until then, we hope you guys have a good night.